So I was picking up like the energy of longing and yearning for something. This could be for a person, and I'm getting that it's mutual. So this isn't like a limerence sort of situation. There are like life circumstances that can keep people apart until they can like be together fully or whatever. Or it could be sort of you know, like a job opportunity specifically, or just like for a specific like I don't know, industry to open its doors to you in some respect. It's just like a certain goal that you've had to wait for its unfolding. Um, right? Like waiting for the sign that you can like start taking action or whatever. But I'm getting that like sort of like the underlying spiritual reason why it took so long. It was like allowing space and time for your like the form of desire that you held for it to sort of mature and develop. So I could just like use a long distance relationship as an example, okay? But like say, you meet someone and you click and everything's like going well, right? And then like the first form of desire that you have for each other is like physical, right? And like, like intimately or whatever, sacral energy, like, you know, like in an 18 plus way, okay? And it could be very intense at first, right? And then things like infatuation can develop, right? And then it's infatuation that you could have mistaken for love, because love implies more of like a long-term thing, right? But in the moment it definitely feels like love. That's why teenagers are like, can be really frustrated when people are like, oh, you guys don't actually love each other, you're too young. But no, it still releases the same like things as like it's infatuation, because it's not like backed up by I don't know, I'll get into that. But anyway, so it's like things have been stretched to the point where like the infatuation stage has already like passed or dissipated. So if it was like a superficial connection, it would have died off. And then it evolves into like the pain of missing one another and like the confusion and the doubt and stuff like that. And then it's overcome the point of confusion and doubt to return back to like choosing to stay and choosing to return to that like loving feeling. And like that's how it like the love is more authentic and more unconditional, because it gets through that hard point of like the frustration and reaching that like that breaking point where the frustration like feels like it's gonna like destroy you or whatever, and then you still like make the conscious choice to choose that person or that path or whatever. um and then you're actually committed to it after that point, you know what I mean? And it's giving like, again, going back to like the long distance thing, it's like I think it's like taken long enough to where it breaks through any nervousness that would potentially arise, to where it's pushed past the point of like you thinking and believing that you're ready, and it's like you're actually ready. It's like there's no danger of getting cold feet. There's no threat of like you changing your mind at the last minute. And like when you're actually, again, hold on. When you're actually like in the midst of whatever this is, you won't doubt if it's right for you, because you've already like had all this time to process and like think it through and be like, is this actually what I want? you know so the doubts have already been processed and overcome. The frustration has already been like, you know you've it's like already reached the breaking point, and you've chosen to just keep going with it anyway, and that makes it more stable, you know what I mean? So basically, I guess like it doesn't have to be Jesus. It doesn't have to just be like a romantic thing. It could be, again, with like some passion or whatever that you were trying to progress towards. Like say you're writing a book, which is a commitment as well. It's just, or like, you were working on some form of art, right? It's just like something. But I'm getting that like you've reached a point of certainty in regards to whatever this is, to where like, you know, for a fact that it's actually what you want, because there have been like burdens or obstacles that have kind of made it seem like, going in a different direction would have like it like seemed to be easier to give up on this thing, and then you like chose to not give up on it anyway. And then that's kind of like, so I guess like if it's a relationship, it survived the stress test, right? And if this is like you pursuing a passion, you've again like survived the stress test of it, to where it's kind of like, oh, if you survived like the worst that this thing is going to get and you still chose it at the end of the day, then that means it will survive the long term. It's giving like you have shown your commitment to something. um I guess. And I don't want to say that because like I'm getting that this thing is like committed to you in return, and it wasn't like, so if it's another person, they weren't like consciously testing you or anything like that. I'm getting that like they've also had to choose within to be committed to this. Like going back to the like LDR thing, like if it's like a long distance thing, it's like you guys have both, whether you've talked about this or not, you've both like approached the point where you could theoretically go and be with somebody that lives closer. Maybe somebody even approached you, you know what I mean? And then it's like having that moment of truth of like, should I go ahead and just do this like easier thing and give up, or should I like, is it worth it for me to continue with this because I know and I feel deep in my soul that this is meant for me. Okay. And so it's almost like, it's, people do like loyalty tests on each other, which I think is really toxic. Like don't do that. Okay. But it's giving that like the universe itself gave you guys, or if it's just one person and it was something, it's like it gave you, or gave you and your person like loyalty tests before it brought you together, so that there would be no confusion. I'm getting that like, so you could have been in situations in the past where like it had a really strong start, okay, but then as things progressed, a lot of like doubts arise. So this could look like you entered a relationship with somebody and things look very promising at the beginning, and maybe things were technically promising, but they like failed their stress test, or they got to the point where they're like, oh, I don't know if I actually want to be in a relationship. And like somebody who romanticizes being single, okay, and there are always signs of this, you know. And I don't know, like talking about like cheating or whatever is so toxic, because it like, even just like the term is like triggering. I understand when people are like healing from something like that, but it's giving like, say you were with somebody in a long-term relationship and technically they weren't cheating, but say they're always on Reddit, like reading through people's like oh, dating nightmares or like Tinder nightmare things. Like, why are you even like on there? Because this doesn't apply to you because you're in a long-term relationship. And then like they just be like, oh, I'm just amused by this, you know what I mean? Which I'm not like, you don't need to like police another person's behavior, but you can tell when someone's like hyper fixated on the concept of something, And also, it's hard to prove that somebody has a wandering eye, because obviously if they're wearing sunglasses, like, a wandering eye can literally be a glance, and like processing internally. um Unfortunately, some of us can like read energy and sometimes pick up thoughts and whatever. So, you know what I mean? That stuff can be hard to hide, and I'm getting that it's going to continue to be harder to hide, but whatever. So, anyway, so if it is a relationship situation, it's like you guys have broken past the point where like that would even happen in the future, you know? Um, right? Like you're attracting connections with somebody who's not going to sort of romanticize being single once you guys are together, okay? Like, you're actually going to be able to grow old with somebody if that is your desire, right? And they're not going to be, some like 60-year-old person who's like uh again, like ogling like younger individuals or anything like that, because they're going to be so down bad for you forever because they chose you and they chose you again. And even when it was like the hard thing to do, they continue to choose you, right? And some people, if they're in the wrong mindset, they can develop like resentment for somebody that they sacrifice things for. But that doesn't apply here. This is giving somebody who like, is like, I don't know, doing something like sacrificing the wishes of their like friends and family or something, even to like choose you or whatever, or like crossing some form of like cultural barrier or even like economic barrier, or like, I don't know, something like that, in order to be with you. And they have had enough time to know and like decide fully that that is the right choice, and then like, so they're never going to like go back on it, and they're never going to regret it, basically. So it's like the time needed to pass. And again, it doesn't have to be romantic. It could apply to anything, so I guess take it as it resonates. But like the wait was necessary to remove all doubt and fear, and now all doubt and fear has been removed,